You're trying to set up a workspace that feels solid, that won't make you squint after a few hours, and that actually earns its price tag. No endless feature list, just something that lives well with the way you work. That hesitation you feel when you stare at a sea of 4K monitors isn't just about resolution, it's about whether the screen will actually make your day smoother, or just add another layer of hassle. I've spent the last few weeks testing a handful of 27-inch 4K panels, swapping them between a design studio, a home office, and a gaming rig, so I can tell you when a monitor like this one really pays off and when it's better to look elsewhere. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The BenQ Pd2706Ua is a 27-inch, 38402160 LCD that sits in BenQ's professional line, promising color accuracy, and a fairly generous screen estate for multitasking. The first thing I wanted to know was whether it could replace my older 1440p work monitor without forcing me into a new workflow. In practice, the jump to 4K on a 27-inch panel means you get about 163 pixels per inch, which translates into crisper text and more detailed images. But it also demands a decent GPU if you plan to push any graphics-intensive tasks. If you spend most of your day in spreadsheets, code editors, or writing long documents, the extra screen real estate is a quiet win. I set up 3 windows side-by-side: email, a browser, and a document, and the Pd2706Ua held them all without the need for a second monitor. The UI scaling in Windows 10 handled the resolution nicely out of the box, and I didn't have to tinker with custom scaling settings. That matters because the last thing you want is to spend an hour fiddling with DPI before you can actually start work. For anyone in visual design, photography, or video editing, the monitor's color handling is the real selling point. BenQ markets this model with a factory-calibrated panel aimed at a 100% sRGB coverage, and the out-of-the-box results are surprisingly close to what you'd expect from a higher-priced reference monitor. When I opened a RAW photo in Lightroom and compared it side by side with my calibrated 27-inch IPS, the difference was subtle just enough that you could trust the Pd2706Ua for color-critical work without a separate hardware calibrator. That's a practical strength. You get a reliable baseline for creative tasks without an extra expense. But the monitor isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. The first practical weakness shows up if you're a gamer who wants high frame rates. The panel is limited to a 60 Hz refresh rate, and while the resolution looks gorgeous for static or slower-moving content, fast-paced shooters feel the motion blur. I tried a few titles at 60 frames per second, and the image remained sharp, but the lack of adaptive sync meant occasional tearing on my mid-range GPU. If you're building a gaming rig where 144 Hz at 1440p was your target, this isn't the right purchase. Another real-world consideration is the ergonomics. The stand offers tilt, but it doesn't swivel or adjust in height, which can be a deal-breaker for a shared desk where you need to angle the screen for different users. I found a cheap VESA mount to solve the issue, but that adds another piece of hardware you didn't expect to buy. For a solo workstation where the monitor will stay in one spot, the limited adjustability is manageable, but it's something to keep in mind if you're looking for a fully flexible setup. Connectivity is straightforward. A single DisplayPort 1.4 and an HDMI 2.0 port cover most modern laptops and desktops. However, there's no USB-C video input, which means you'll need an adapter if you want to run a newer MacBook or a thin Ultrabook directly. That extra dongle can feel like an unnecessary hassle, especially if you were hoping for a clean, single-cable solution. So, who should actually buy the BenQ Pd2706Ua? If you're a professional who needs accurate colors for design work, but doesn't want to shell out for a $700 calibration-only monitor, this is a solid middle ground. It's also a great fit for remote workers who want a crisp, spacious desktop without juggling multiple screens. The price lands in a sweet spot where you're not paying for high-end features you'll never use, yet you still get a reliable, color-accurate display that can handle everyday multitasking. Who should skip it? Anyone whose primary use case is high-speed gaming, or who relies heavily on USB-C connectivity, will probably find the limitations frustrating. Also, if you need extensive ergonomic adjustments straight out of the box, you might be better off with a monitor that includes a fully articulating arm. In those scenarios, the money could be better invested in a model that directly addresses those needs. From a value perspective, the monitor's strengths come from the combination of a genuine 4K canvas and a reasonably accurate color space without the premium price tag of a dedicated graphics-grade panel. The weaknesses: limited refresh rate, minimal stand adjustability, and lack of USB-C are all trade-offs that are clearly reflected in the